About how you handle your haters, because everybody's going to have haters. The work that we do, Charles Cole travels the country setting up literacy funds and literally giving out money to people to be able to boost literacy in communities. He does participatory research with young people so that they live in the data that governs their lives, and then write reports in their own words and issue that to the community. And yet, that sounds like good work, right? Everybody can agree that sounds like good work. And yet, Charles Cole will encounter haters,
a lot
people
of
who call him everything but the child of God. Everybody, people who will say his motives are everything except for teaching young people how to have agency in their lives. Sharif El-Mekki is looking to make sure that we get Black men in the classrooms. It is possible for an American child to go to school right now, especially Black children, and never see a Black male, never see a Black teacher, period, but never see a Black male. And this man is devoting his life, his time, his energy. Take the cap off, Ray. Take the cap off, Ray. Stop it. You're starting early. But Sharif El-Mekki will travel the country trying to install systems that get more Black men into the teaching profession. He has been a calm ambassador for Black peace, Black education, and they will still come after Sharif El-Mekki. He will still have haters. Why? Why would Sharif El-Mekki have haters? He's just trying to get Black men in the classroom. He's just trying to get Black children educated. And then my boy, Ray. So Ray runs a school that actually gets a network of schools. Let me be real with this. A whole ass network of schools that gets results with our children. All across the country, we are looking for ways to get results for our kids, and we are struggling for the answer to make it happen. And we have people like Ray who are waking up every morning thinking about how do you staff a school? How do you get the budgets right? How do you get the time, the sequence? How do you look at the data? How do you get the kids on track? And Raymond will have haters. He will have people that will say everything besides his real mission. They will give him ill motives for the things that he wants to do. What's in common here? We are all different people living in different parts of the country, and we will all still encounter people that will, one, get into ad hominem with us, right? Misstate our values, misstate our work, and whatever. And we feel a little bit battle tested. I think we've been through this long enough to feel confident and comfortable in our own skin and what we're doing.
Hold on, bro. You forgot somebody, B.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, hold on. We'll do his. We'll do his. You know what I'm saying? You got a brother that did not go to traditional college. You got a brother that started out with his first son, not understanding the school system, you know what I'm saying, and going through that process, then getting involved in the actual school board process and learning and starting to expose what these systems are doing to our young people and to us as a community. Yes. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Who now has who has been a teacher. He said he has taught in 4 decades or 3 decades. I want to make sure I get it right. You know what I'm saying? Decades. Been parenting. Yeah. I'm sorry, I've been parenting in those decades and has given voices to families, has given a common person that is pedestrian to a lot of education and issues, but it impacts them every day, giving them voices. And also went and started just in his spare time, started a whole different organization for the pure service of Black women that has been able to fund some amazing ideas and actually add value to our community, and he gets a lot of haters. So, I didn't want to leave you out, big.
Adding to that though, right? He's also a brother that gives folks opportunities, right? Folks that the three of us probably wouldn't give opportunities to, right? But like in not hating, right, and trying to set people up in order to get voices out there or whatnot, right? He definitely throws that olive branch to folks that we definitely would not,
even if he doesn't agree with them, right? So
right. And he still receives hate.
I appreciate this. So what I'm going to ask y'all right now is, given all the bios that I just read and the track records, what we are trying to accomplish as 4 Black men in a racist society, racist country, for our children and for the future, why on earth would we ever be looking in the face of somebody who doesn't look like us, doesn't come from where we come from, who is completely attributing all of our work to ill motives, ill values, and in some cases to white people that are just simply paying us or whatever. So the first thing I want to say is, imagine this conversation we're having tonight in terms of the people that are watching that may not be as seasoned and battle tested as we are, but want to do this advocacy work and are going to encounter these things. I'm just looking from y'all what you would say from your own experience and your advice to help fortify them, help them understand the game, help them understand the language, right? What you're going to be called, you know. We could all probably list the top 3 things you're going to be called and how to respond and all those things, right? So let's open up the conversation with that now. How do y'all handle your haters?
All right.
I'll start with you, Charles Cole, actually, because I think, you know, well, this is why I'm going to say this, is because I think Oakland has one of the craziest stories in that a hater can just, like, you could be like, I just gave out $150,000 to families last night, and haters jump right in your timeline. Yeah, but you, whatever, right? Like come right at you. Help me understand how you deal with it and how you would tell somebody else to deal with it coming up in your wake.
Yeah, one is discernment. I don't always handle it very, very good. I don't always handle it very well. I know y'all said define hater. So I mean, I think it can look different for a lot of people, but I think folks that just always got something negative to say every time your name come up is something negative, is some kind of or like they got to add something onto it. Anything to diminish the value that you bring. And that's the thing. You ain't got to like me. We ain't got to like each other. But you know what I'm saying? You can't hate on this work. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'll give an example. Everybody don't have to like Kendrick Lamar's latest album but a lot of people do like it. But it's one thing to say, oh, you know what, that ain't my cup of tea. It's not for me. It's another thing to be like, man, he ain't talented. He ain't never been talented. What has he done for the culture? A lot. He's done a lot for the culture, actually. He's done a whole bunch for, you know, people that want to
talk about me.
You didn't say you didn't like it. You told me some tracks.
No, the positive
haters on this show.
Yeah, no. I was on the former part where I was like, I don't know if this is my cup of tea, but
that's fine. No,
I didn't hate on the brother.
Not my cup of tea is not hating. Like critiquing something, I think is not hating. But I think that there are people that have not accomplished anything, but they try to diminish your accomplishments because in some kind of way they feel that by you being successful in what you want to do and them not, they feel like, oh, I gotta say why he's successful. I gotta say why this is happening, because so people not looking at me. It's, you know what I'm saying, it's rooted in a level of narcissism. It's rooted in a level of just like, you know, not being really comfortable with you and your lot in life and what you're doing or whatever. But what I would say is Oakland's a little different. I tend to deal with this from a lot of people that ain't really with it like that. Like I'm actually like a square, man. Like it's so interesting in this work because like, and I think all of us can kind of understand this. Like we work with people that's like really like in the streets or really struggling with things or really in poverty and things like that. And there's people that didn't grow up with you or people that don't know what you went through that got a lot to say. You feel me? And it's like, okay, well, what have you done? Like check it. Well, if I had this type of relationship, if I had what you had, you don't know what the fuck I had. You don't know what I came from. You don't know what I crawled through to get to this moment. You don't know how hard I worked. You're not on tour with us when people going out and they see Charles with a laptop and a notebook. You don't know what I've sacrificed, right? Like you don't know the losses that I take to get to the smaller wins. And I don't even think it's good enough yet. And just wait till you see the next things that we do. I think that's when you talk about hate. I don't actually know how to give that advice to people though, Chris. Like when you said the last question is the one that messed me up. If somebody's trying to get back in this work or do this type of work, listen, man, I've talked to y'all. I've talked to y'all off camera about, you know what I'm saying? Like my goal is to build enough of a nugget to where I can do my stuff alone in my tucked away in my thing, man. You know, you don't have to be friends with everybody. I think try to let your work speak for you is one of those pieces. I think that you have to have a strong community around you. Like there are people in Oakland and Chicago that know my heart. I don't need it's on the internet, somebody always checking what you say. Well, you didn't say this, and you didn't say it like this, and you didn't say it like that. You know why? Because their life is so good that they got time to check everything you saying because they ain't doing nothing oftentimes on their own. You feel me? So I don't know that answer to that question. It's different for different people. I can be volatile at times. I'm working on it. I pray on it. But you got to be cool with not having friends. You got to be cool with being alone. And if your mission is your mission, then that's what you got to focus on and try to focus on the people. Is much easier said than done. I am not perfect at it. I actually probably get more upset than than everybody else on our podcast, and I'll own that. And all I'll say, and I'll shut up and let y'all have it after this. I always feel like I'm gonna lose it. I try not to live in this deficit mindset, but if we're gonna be honest about it, I live there. It is a place that I have to actively work to not be in. And I always feel like, man, it's gonna get snatched away at some point. And that's not a way that I like to walk through life. But I do say this, and I mean it. If I do lose everything, I'm gonna make it worth it. Do not be the reason that I lose all my shit. Because if I knew if it's all gonna go away, I'm gonna I am going all the way in. And whatever that means, I am with it, however that needs to be. That's not the best mentality to have. But I think when somebody that's came from things that I've come from, and not everybody, right? But that's a mentality that you have to be ready to go off on. So that is not the best advice, but it's real advice.
I do want to say, number one, is damn good advice, for one. Let's just start there. Number two, when you say that's maybe not the best mindset to be in, I was like, as you were saying it, I was reminded, my grandmother, God bless her soul, I remember her years ago say to me that if you're going to be in a fight and you're going to lose, make sure that the other person knows that they were in a fight. And I take that to heart, because I think a lot of times the reason people don't stand their ground in little petty battles, they don't stand their ground, is because they fear losing. Don't fear losing. Just let the other person fear, even if they're going to win, let it not be an easy win. Let's just put it that way. Let it be a hard win. So, Sharif, what's up with you, brother?
Well, I mean, the first thing, those two examples remind me of Baba Changa. He used to say, if I, and remind you, we're like 6 and 7-year-olds. He's like, if I walked in this room with a broken arm and crutches and a bandage over my eye, does that mean I lost the fight? And as little kids, we're like, yeah, man, you sound tore up. He's like, suppose I'm coming from the other boy's funeral. You know what I mean? Like, so this is like literally our martial arts teacher. We're like, oh yeah, right. Like, so every time you get lumps doesn't mean that you actually lost, right? And so, I think that's important. Just part of life is you're going to take lumps, here and there. And I'm not advocating violence. I'm a pacifist, but what I would say is, you never, don't assume because what you see means that person is taking L's. And so I approach it a little bit differently, but I just think that sometimes, everything has a season and a reason and strategy and you have to just discern like what's best. What are you going to respond to? What are you not? What are you going to snipe back at? What are you not? Right? Sometimes, chins have to be tapped. Sometimes it's like, you know what? I'm just ignore. I remember reading a long time ago, it's like, sometimes you kill them with kindness. Sometimes you kill them with blindness and don't even see these jokers, right? Because sometimes they are like literally their only job is to distract you from what you're working on, right? And who was it? Toni Morrison talked about that with racism, right? Like that the main job of racism is to keep you defending your existence, right? And we should know that we don't need to prove our humanity, just like we don't need to prove our work, besides the people that we're working for. Like, to me, that's, even as a school leader, as a teacher, they're like, oh, you're in the charter, you're in this. It's like, you know what? The only people I'm accountable for are the people that I made promises to. And I make no promises to you whatsoever. I make promises to the communities that I serve. Those are the only ones, ultimately, them and God are who I'm accountable to, and so keeping that on the forefront, I think, is absolutely important. There are a whole lot of folks who love rhetoric. A lot of folks will just, we used to bring, and all of you have been there. And we're going to continue saying used to, like, it paused during the pandemic. We'd bring Black men from all around the country. Those Black men who are by themselves in somewhere in Nebraska, in Iowa, in, all types of places. We would bring them together for fellowship, for professional learning, to galvanize, to unify, to support. And there were jokers who were literally telling Black men in New Jersey, don't go to, the Black male educators convening. And folks are like, why? Like, well, because we don't like them and you shouldn't like them either. Why? And they just keep asking the whys, right? Like, and a lot of them came anyway. But just having that level of, you know, animosity.
Sharif, how they hate from outside the club? They can't get in, B. I don't understand. What's happening?
But they could have. But they so mentally small.
I can't go, so you shouldn't go.
Yeah. But mentally small, mental midgets is what, you know, we see a lot of that, especially social media. Social media has literally given a platform for mental midgets, and they proliferate, you know, the whole system. So, but they've always been there. They've always been there, you know.
What about you, Ray? You've been battle tested. You've seen this thing from several angles. What do you think?
Man, I think one of the most important things is to remember who you're doing the work for, right? I think everybody said that. And then what
you should put that hat on while you're talking though.
I recharge by being centered in the work. Like, for example, this week was National Charter School Week, and there was a protest in DC. And so this protest wasn't like the normal protest where you put plants in and folks would be like, oh, those are astroturfers and like all the other names and coined phrases that they talk about parents in ed reform. But these parents were organic, right? True in heart, true in nature. And like they were there for one reason, and that was to let Joe Biden know that you need to back off charter schools. And being able to engage with a Sarah Carpenter, being able to engage with Mama Toya, being able to engage with Renee, who I pinned down and made her tell me who her favorite hand was, and it's not me, and I'm okay with that.
Are you sure?
I needed to hear it, right? I needed to hear it. And so,
there's a lot of people that like you more than they like me on this thing. Can I ask Renee, bro?
There's a lot of people that love me. Right.
Oh, geez.
That's fine. But yes.
Hey, but listen.
They all in his house right now, but it's
hey, one of them's in your house. Who you talking about? So, but to be in community with those folks, man, it was amazing. The Naomi Sheltons, the J Artist Rights, and like the folks that are in this work that are shout out to the Alliance for their work in terms of getting the stage and allowing parents to come and do their thing. It was an amazing feeling. And so that right there kind of helps me to recenter why I do the work and think about the parents that we work for, right? And allowing them to have a voice. But you know what kills me though about these haters, right? Is that they don't give a shit about these parents. Like, a parent could come in and a parent could be like, hey, I want this type of school for this kid, and I want this type of school for my other kid, right? And want to run the gamut with choices that they should have in terms of being able to engage their kids in the schools that are going to be best fit for their kids. And then you'll have people that'll be like, oh, you're not smart enough to choose your own school, parent, right? And that's absolutely insane to me.
And they hate you for trying to show them the light. They hate you for giving them an option. They hate you for even raising the specter of, you know, like you have some special standing because you're Black and they're Black. They're trying to decouple you from your own people in that way, your leadership. What are some common tactics? If you had to like really think about the game and you think about your haters, what's some of their main line of attacks? What's some of their tactics?
Hey, what national news you was in last week?
What?
What national news?
What are you talking about?
Bro, were you in the national news last week? It's in the comments.
Oh, I was about to say, I was like, is Ray drinking? What is he talking about? So there's a comment that I'm not seeing. Okay. I don't know what that is. What Principal Kalefe says, Chris, good to see you in the national news last week. I think I was in a story about CRT in Georgia. So thank you, Captain Tangent.
Listen. The reason why I do that, right, is because you between the three of you superstars on this screen, y'all are always in some type of news media because of the work that you guys do, right? And you guys are amazing at the jobs that you do, and I don't think that we highlighted that enough. So I'm sorry.
And you know what? In the moment that happens,
Yeah.
That you end up in one of these stories, one of these reports or something that goes out nationally, somebody tweets about it. Guess what's the very next thing that happens?
Hate.
You get a hater. You get haters, and oh, billionaires. Oh, the neoliberal. Blah blah blah. You sold out. You trying to like destroy stuff. Whatever. So this is why I'm asking you, because if you were new to this, like actually, we have a friend who is also in a national news story this week, who isn't always in national news stories. Luckily, she has a little bit of experience with haters, but if you're not, and you're not very experienced, it could actually ruin your weekend. It could ruin your week to all of a sudden think, well, I did something good. And then the next thing you know, you're collecting tweets and little messages. I got email from college professors. That won't surprise you. And it won't surprise you what they said to me. People within colleges of education wrote me after we put out a blast last week, email blast. And it won't surprise you what they said to me. So this is what I want to ask you with your haters, with what you've seen. If you had to teach somebody the game, what are some of the main line of attacks? How are they? What's their strategy, like their tactics in trying to come at you?
Pull up something you did before, name mistakes, say you only doing it for the money, say, oh, who told you to say that? A whole bunch of stuff. Or they smile in your face and then they just start, y'all might be, going up for grants or something like that, and your name come up and then they got some negative stuff to say, try to what I'm saying? It happens. And to be honest with you, I deal with it in a lot of ways. And I think all of us could say this, and we just gonna call it, tell the truth and shame the devil. I feel like I get more hate from my own people than I do from white folks. I feel like white folks be a little afraid to say stuff. It'd be black folks that's, they be like, oh, them my white people. You know what I'm saying? No. Or that's my grand, or this my dad, or whatever, right? And I think my thing is this, man. It's a lot of things that they do. And I just feel like they do that because in those moments, you are proof that what they said was impossible is possible. And it is putting pressure on their existence. And so that's not really an issue for me. That's your issue. And sometimes people do it inadvertently. I don't think everybody does it with a mean heart, right? I think sometimes people do just be confused. Cat Williams will say, hey, haters is friends. They fans. You know what I mean? And I think there's ways to look at it. I think that a conversation can solve, I think, 85% of stuff. But I think those are just some of the tactics. You ain't got to put it on me because we're not doing the panel thing. People can just jump in, but those are some things that I've seen. Y'all might have seen it in some other ways.
Yeah, but I think what you said is right though, right? Like some people hate with a sense of intentionality that I've never seen before in my life. Like for example, this was down in DC was a grassroots effort for parents, but then you have some parents that are like, well, I'm a better advocate than this other parent, right? How fuck are you a better advocate for somebody's kid than them, right? And you got folks that are getting into these back rooms and whatnot and be like, hey, you should fund me because we do this better, right? Everybody has a different experience in terms of how they engage parents, and not all parents are the same. No parents are a monolith, right? And so I think we need to start having more conversations like this, putting people out on Front Street, to have them stop doing that, because if folks think that it's okay for you to go and talk negative about somebody else's way of feeding their kids, I don't think that's acceptable. I think that's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So much can be handled through diplomacy and conversations and taking a high road. 100%. I do agree with that. Malcolm used to talk about, that true criterion of leadership is spiritual. So bring in, an aspect of that, and again, just constantly remembering what your North Star is, your why. And that's why I think people's why is so important, because if you know, who you're in service to, with, and for, then it becomes more of a challenge for haters to block you. Because you recognize that your work is connected to something much, much bigger. But as far as directly your question, Chris, as far as what do you hear? I think sometimes you hear, labeling, right? People want to start saying that you've been brainwashed, even though they ain't in your brain. They haven't done no brain scans, but they think they know that some kind of way someone has infiltrated your brain and started, doing things. They want to define you. Some of them, I mean, you see this a lot. Ray talked about, Cole talked about, his own people. You start seeing people that's even if you're not saying anything directly to them, they just show up, hop up there in front of your face, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm blacker than you." They want to out black you, which I always find comical, right? Like, people just want to like just start promoting what they did in the last 60 days, and just like, yeah, well, that's fine, good for you. But if you recently found your blackness, just walk with humility. Don't just try to just jump in folks' faces and start trying to prove, because this is one of the things that Thomas Sankara talked about, right? He's like, this revolution isn't this public speaking tournament. And that's what many people want to turn the work into. They're more infatuated with rhetoric than results. And so what he warned about, like this, the revolution ain't a public speaking tournament. It ain't a battle of fine phrases. But a lot of folks, that's what they want to turn it into, because they can't show you the work. They can't show you receipts. They can't show you what they're doing. They can't show you the impact that they're having. But man, they sure can talk a good game. They can tweet faster than most folks, right? And so that,
I think the reason that, I hate when people say Twitter's not real life. I hate when people.
I say that too. But go ahead.
Yeah, I know, but as someone who's a long-term Twitter user and a communications person, this is why I hate it. Because narratives get started and they take off and they take root through all channels of communication and mass media, including social media. So if you want to kill ideas or kill policies or kill programs or get people fired or get people in trouble or whatever, there's lots of material impact to ignoring things that take place. So like the work that we do, for instance, oftentimes it ends up being policy work. We're trying to get public understanding around the issues that we care about. We're trying to increase public proficiency around what we care about. And there's some very strong narratives that get shared and retweeted and reshared that do things like, you've heard me talk about the belief gap. The belief gap is the difference between what our kids are capable of and what adults in their lives think they're capable of. Yeah. And when it comes to the belief gap, nobody has a bigger belief gap than Black children. And the narratives around Black children that get traded over and over and over again in popular culture, in social media, whatnot. You talk about Black achievement, and if it's not high enough, the first thing goes to, well, they're probably poor, or their parents are probably bad, or their culture, or their neighborhoods, their backgrounds, their SES. All tests measure is whether your parents are educated or not. Maybe if they were doing a better job with their kids, whatever. These are all narratives that take root in the public mind and stay there. There are things that have been changed in the public mind through social media over time in the last 10 years that never would have been challenged in any other way, right? So I do think that there need to be competing narratives for the worst narratives that are killing us. And the way that it happens is activists thinking through the stories, thinking through the truth, combating negative stories about us, combating negative data about us. And oftentimes that happens through social media, right? And I think what a lot of the educators, for instance, that come at us oftentimes have the same set of talking points across the country. They say like the same 5 things when it comes to, when we talk about charters or choice or needing more options or alternatives or whatnot, their narratives are so strong and they share them. You could live in New York or Arizona or Seattle, Washington, and find a teacher saying the exact same thing. That's the power of like a shared narrative, right? And then they take those shared narratives with them into their communities and into their families' houses and into the voting booth. And they get things killed
too. They take those belief gaps into the classroom too, right? And I don't feel like we talk about that enough either, right? It's like, listen, anytime we talk about teaching or the lack thereof, right? It's not an indictment on the profession per se, right? But like, we need to be able to have tough conversations about when teaching happens and when it doesn't happen, right? And we need to be able to call it out. And we also need to be able to look at the metrics that tell us that teaching isn't happening, right? It's like people want to back off and like, oh, standardized tests are the devil. Well, when you can give us an alternative, that allows us to have markers to show that there's student growth that is happening in these classrooms, then you cannot expect for Black and brown parents to trust these systems that weren't designed for them.
Yeah, I think we should stay on this Twitter versus real life thing. I actually think this is a good debate. I think in what you do, Chris, and how you work and the work that you're in, absolutely. I think that's the answer that you should have. I think that there's a whole movement around that piece. When I say that, the vast majority of people that I love, that know me, that know my heart, don't look at Twitter. Like, we live in a time where people will go to Twitter to figure out what they think about something because they're waiting for Twitter to tell them what they think. Now, if you are somebody that I'm in business with and you see a Twitter campaign and you decide that you don't want to rock with me no more, well, that's a blessing from about, grass is getting cut and letting snakes see, right? If you that fickle and that feeble, and that's how you change if you're going to rock with me or not, then, hey, man, that probably was a blessing. Listen, we got to get to it. Everybody don't have to agree with you. The four of us do not agree on everything. The one thing we agree on is about believing in our people and what Black people can do. But outside of that, we debate. We give each other, we push and we pull. And there are things we concede or things that we push on. And I know that my auntie, who is my favorite person, who has a son that has autism, and part of the reason that I parlayed my position as a social worker to help my family, she ain't looking at that, and she know my heart. So yeah, maybe I said something wrong, or maybe I did something, or maybe I got in trouble. And you just want to pull that up. You don't know me. You don't know my heart. You don't give a fuck about me. You wasn't praying for me when I was in them shelters. That's the other thing. It works both ways. It's a lot of people that claim to or say that they love me now. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, thank you for praying for me now. But you didn't know me then either. You know what I'm saying? Twitter gets on the winner's bandwagon. And it's like, I'm weary when people start liking me because of that stuff too. You know what I mean? It cuts both ways. You're never as bad as they say you are, and you're never as good as they say you are. So I agree with you, Chris. There are prevalent narratives that can grow there, and it is a wing of activism now, and it is in the zeitgeist. But you need to have an anchor. Sharif was talking about your why. I do a whole session called What's Your Anchor? What's the thing that holds you down? What do you care about at the end of the day, and what's going to keep you on your square? What is your anchor? And if you are letting Twitter ragdoll you and you're making your choices and decisions off of that, one, learn how to cut that phone off, and two, get back to the land of the living. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. And Chris, you are a service, and what you do, you are a service to the field and to a bunch of us that don't have that energy. Because here's the thing. I'm not doing what you do, bro. I cannot go back and forth. We not like when they cross certain lines. All of y'all have seen me in Twitter exchanges. Y'all will be having good little long 2-3 hour threads. And then I come on, I'm like, so where are we meeting at? Like, what are we doing? What is happening right now? Like, you know what I'm saying? So everybody's just not built or doesn't have the type of patience that you have. And you're very good at it. Twitter is a skill. It is not a skill set that I have in that same way. Like, either we're going to be nose to nose, or we're going to agree to disagree, or we going, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. And because I disagree with you on something, don't mean I can't love you. It don't mean that I can't rock with you. You know what I'm saying? Some of this shit be wild, but also if I see you just make your opinions based off of what's trending, and I don't know if I want to really kick it with you. No way.
Look at an actual example though. In New Orleans, Twitter became real life, right? And I'll tell the audience how. We're an audience. We're in New Orleans. We're doing a live show. We're on a platform. Somebody, a person gets up and stands up, and I don't know if it was a question or a statement that person made.
It was a statement.
Was it a statement or a question? I can't remember.
Okay, it was declarative. Yep.
So a parent stands up in a mink coat in New Orleans and says something on the order of, I think y'all talking too much about Black children or children of color. What about the white kids or something like that? And, now we're not in Twitter universe. We're in real world. We're in a real world room. And that becomes an issue, right? Then that person leaves and takes to Twitter and spends the next 3 years trolling all of us on Twitter. And
I'm actually very friendly with that person.
Oh, wow.
You said you're what with that person? I didn't hear you.
He said he's friendly with that person.
He got the hat.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 6 black hands again.
I mean, they definitely took it to Twitter. They wrote, it was an article that came out like a year ago or whatnot. But you know what? There were other people that was there. And them Black women that was there that were like, yo, thank you for that. Thank you. Right. You know what I'm saying? They held me down, and I didn't even have to get. I don't even know what that person said, because that person is not. They're muted or blocked or something. I don't hear it, and I wish them well. And here's the thing: I don't even disagree with everything that she had going on. I think that person was a good advocate for their situation. What I was saying was, anytime, like, yo, I'm having a moment I'm talking to specific people in this thing. And all I said was, we got to go do our own work and then we can come together. And so I think that, yeah, man. And that's also a lady. It's not much that I'm gonna be able to do. I just disengage. But the point is like, look, I don't know if I'm even gonna call her a hater. We got a difference of opinion. I do think that somebody is a bit more privileged and rich and feels like they should have their way on things. And it is what it is. Like, nothing's gonna happen. Get your husband or something in, and me and him can have a conversation, because I'm not gonna disrespect you in that way as a lady. I don't have that.
I disavow.
But I mean, what am I saying that's wrong? I'm being honest, and the reason why the people that rock with me is because of how I stood in that moment, and I stood on my square, even at the dismay of some of us here, right? Like but that is my anchor. These are the people that I care about. I'm thinking about my aunt. I'm thinking about my mom. I'm thinking about the Keisha Youngs in Oakland. I'm thinking about like the type, like Sarah Carpenter type people. Like I know the power that I got in that space. And you can disagree. It's okay. The world's not gonna end if we disagree, but you're not pushing me off my square.
Yeah. And the only thing I'm pointing out is she didn't stop there.
No, she didn't.
No, so she just kept going, and she became somewhat of a. There's a point in which you're a troll, and then there's a point in which you start stalking, right? And that person, I just want to say, you would know that this type of work that we do gets that serious. We were on a podcast, on a stage. Why would somebody want to leave there and turn into a stalker, like a long-term, like stalker, to the point where you have to be muted twice and 2 or 3 times and blocked and all kinds of other stuff? And every time you make a point, she wants to jump into the Twitter thread and say, this is those racist people, blah, blah, blah. Like we all of a sudden became racist, right? You know, like that. That's the haterade. Anyways, I don't want to press on.
So it's very unfortunate that you guys get that type of energy from that person, right? Because I don't, right? And so
I mean, so Ray, don't do this, because Ray, I'm in the middle of the thing. Ray gonna throw the thing back. Now that the angry black man is, I remember this, bro. I remember you was like that. I'm like, how am an angry black man? Oh yeah, no. I remember everything.
I don't know if I said those words.
You absolutely said it. You absolutely said it. But I mean, because she used that as her fuel for later on, you know what I'm saying? And 2, them black women in the crowd right then was like, no, that's not him being angry or whatever. But the point is, whether it's haters or whatever the case is, right? Like, and this is part of the thing that when we were talking about the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing, again, not even about those people. I just want to put a public service announcement out there. I'm not speaking for these other 3 brothers. Put the screen on me. I don't want them to have to get this.
Put the screen on.
I don't care how you feel about what I say on the stage with a microphone in my hand. You come up on that stage, I'm hitting you in the face with the base of the microphone. I do not play them games. I do not come from that type of place. It is not one of those things. I'm not a violent person. I'm really not. I'm really a square. I am not, as they say, quote unquote, with the shits. But do not come on the stage while I got a microphone. I don't care how you feeling about it. You can yell, you can jeer, but you come up there, I think you might be trying to have a knife like that dude did with Dave Chappelle. I'm not playing them games. So this is just a camera on me. Like I said, we can disagree, we can argue, we can do whatever. But if I feel like you a threat, I feel like you're trying to put your hands on me, I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. Yes, it does not matter to me. It's gonna be an issue, man. Do not come on that stage talking crazy.
How do we get? How do we?
I'm gonna tell you how we got here.
Right here, right now.
Because we saw what happened on the stage, and then we saw what happened with Dave Chappelle. We are 4 very controversial people. We have 1 pacifist on that piece. We have activist people in unions. You have activist people that don't like us. I'm listening to what black belt. Listen to what you said. What the point that I'm making is, I'm telling you how we got here.
The king has shotguns. You gotta.
I'm telling you how we got here, because people think certain things are sweet.
I don't
want that energy.
I mean, but listen,
I'm just letting you know it can happen anywhere, bro.
Type of folks are, I mean.
Listen,
so
wait, hold on. I'm saying this. I don't just do stages with y'all. I talk all over the country. I've been in Oakland and shit has gotten crazy. Like I'm from a place where the first black superintendent was assassinated. I am somewhere where I have talked about.
He's the man that you talk about is from Philly.
Yeah. So like I am also from a place where I've been on those stages and I've had to be like, okay, here's what's happening. Here's what will lead to school closures. And people have jumped up and felt some kind of way. And what I'm saying is we can have a cordial conversation, but you're not coming up here and bum rushing the stage and taking nothing out of my hand. And I don't just speak with 8 Black Hands, right? I'm going back to Oakland on Wednesday. I got a talk to give at LinkedIn and then some other stuff like in the hood or whatever. The point that I'm making is I love people, man. I love it. But the internet and the thing that's not real, like Chris was saying, that Twitter, this is where it do get real. People saw that shit happen online and nothing happened. They saw Will Smith walk away with an award. They saw the dude not get charges pressed against him that hit Dave Chappelle. I'm going to fuck you up and I'm pressing charges. I'm just letting you know. Don't come on my stage.
Really quick, let me clarify a point, right?
Okay.
And so
clarify your point.
I am equally, I have the same energy as Sir Charles, right? And so, but I don't need to put that out there. I need you to come on stage and try it so you can feel this energy. That's it.
Okay, so what I want to say about this point is, if you were listening to this, again, you are listening to the 8 Black Hands, and we are in the middle of, I think, a great show on how to handle your haters. The point of the show really is that we are battle tested and have been through some things. And if somebody is coming, we need as many more people to stand up and be activists and advocates as we can possibly get. And in any way you want to activate, however you want to use your voice, we just need you to use it, because we are being shouted down and outworked in many cases by the forces that are not here for Black education. So however you want to come into the game, but we're not going to lie to you on your way into the game, into the thing. We're going to tell you that there are going to be people that are going to turn your motives around and try and use it against you in ways. And what Charles just talked about violence, right? And I see Sharif like, oh, wait a second now, I'm the pacifist and I want to jump in here. And so we got the militant and the pacifist about, and sometimes those are the same things. So don't, but this is what I want to say about this point is there's lots of different kinds of violence, right? And the way that I look at it is, if you try and get me fired from my job, or you're trying to interrupt my salary, and I have kids and a household that I live in, that's violence to me too, right? So you don't have to bum rush me on stage for me to consider it violence. And a lot of times what our haters are attempting to do is to get us cut off from things, from resources, from having a standing, trying to drag our name through the mud or whatnot. And I don't know how the rest of you all think about that. But when I think about that, I think about that in material terms. That's violence to me too. And I'm saying this as somebody who has lost 2 jobs when I was on the school board because I made unpopular votes or I took an unpopular position on something publicly. And now all of a sudden people want to use their social power to try and cut me off from my work, call my job and start trying to, start boycotts and do other things. And I get fired, right? And I have kids at home.
Yeah.
So this activism thing is real. Yeah. And the haters that come for you aren't just coming to just have petty little talks and stuff like that. They're trying to ruin your name. They're trying to make it so you can't work anywhere else. They're trying to create a digital trail so that if anybody tries to work with you and they look you up, they're going to find all kinds of haterade, right? This is real. This is real. And not everybody wants to sign up for that. Not everybody, people are like, well, damn, I just thought I was advocating for Black children. I didn't
that alone. When has that not been dangerous in this country?
Well, I mean,
when is advocating for Black children not been dangerous? When is that not put you up front and put you in harm's way? Like that's the stark reality of it. And so, making sure, and I agree with you, making sure that you are, aware of this. And it doesn't, I don't even think, and you all are also saying this, like, it doesn't have to be public, right? It doesn't have to be a stage. It doesn't have to be this. As soon as you start doing something, because if you're putting Black children first, that means you are inevitably, with full certainty, going to start critiquing the system that exists. Yes. And with that comes a whole lot of people who are in their positions to defend the very thing that you recognize is putting kids in harm's way. Yes. And so that's a part of it, right? And then if you're a free thinker, You know, one of my favorite quotes that my peoples gave me a long time ago from Jodorowsky was like, birds born in a cage think flying is an illness. If you recognize that and you're a free thinker, then there are going to be people who like, well, he's ill, he's insane, I need to attack him. But you got to recognize also, like, if you don't, as Cole said, don't get off your square, like, you know what? He's born in a cage, a mental cage. Again, mental midget born in a cage, and think you're free thinking, your black child advocacy means that you are harmful to not only the world, but to yourself. And here they come.
Yeah, but you got some black folks that are indoctrinated in that thinking as well.
Oh, everybody who promotes whiteness ain't white.
Right. Yeah.
No, that's called neocolonialism. So neocolonialism is when it comes into blackface.
Yeah, but it hurts. It hurts so much more when it comes from black people.
Nah, but I mean, I don't know. It hurt regardless of who it is. I love Sharif, and this is why I love Sharif. Because that was his poetry, and that's who Sharif is. I'll say that in a very different way. Listen,
what Lauryn Hill say? Sometimes you gotta say,
you gotta add them up, right? Niggas hear you. I got you. That's what Lauryn said. But what I was, what for me, and y'all know this, I've talked about this off, and I'll share with this family. We ain't gotta go super in depth into it, but like, you can call it trauma, you can call it whatever. I remember what the shelter smelled like. I lived in 4 of them, and so when you trying to take bread out my mouth, I feel like you're trying to put me back in a place that I said I would die before I went back to. It's going to be an issue. It's going to be a real issue. And y'all have seen me personally deal with that. You have seen me. You're like, damn, this Charles is kind of paranoid. Like, yeah, maybe, but I'm not going back. Y'all saw me keep an apartment for 2 extra years after I bought something else, because that is something very, very real in my life. People learn from the things that they've gone through. And in the neighborhood I grew up on, your head got to be on a swivel for the system and racist cops, but also people that see you coming up and want that change. You know what I'm saying? I've been with y'all for so long. I always would take this off. I wouldn't bring my charm. I would just have my chain with me just because of what I came from. So I think as we talking about haters, you got to understand what your triggers are. You got to understand the place where you came from and what would know the things that would cause you to have an irrational reaction to a certain situation. I do think at this point that Ray, Sharif, and Chris know me well enough to where it's like they've seen irrational reactions that's irrational to them, but to people that I've been around, been like, no, you handled that brilliantly. Chris is, as a brother, has been like, bro, I need you to let that go. I need you to calm that down. It's like, no, that it's not. But that's how things work. Again,
when Twitter, Chris Stewart tells you need to calm it down, when Chris Stewart says, bro, you need to calm it down, because people constantly in my ear, like constantly people telling me, like, Chris, you need to, like. So think about what you just said, though, because I'm agreeing with you with what I'm about to say, which is when people wonder why I go toe to toe and I try and stamp things out real quick with anybody who comes at me, it's because I treat every one of them like they're the people that were trying to get me fired from my job. Right? So when you just said go back to the shelter, I think about going back to unemployment insurance, the way that I felt when that happened the first 2 times. And after that, I made a real kind of commitment towards, oh no, you're going to know right away from tweet 1, you're going to know right away that this isn't the game we play, because I'm going to see it as this isn't a tweet. This is you attempting to cut my knees from underneath me in what I'm trying to do in the world. And you're going to know that you were in a fight. And that's a rule for me. Suffer no fools, right? That should be a rule to me. That should be a rule. No, honey, this is not what we're doing today. I'm sorry that you woke up on the wrong side of nobody, but this is not what we're gonna do today, right?
But that's the reason why I can't. That's the reason I don't go back and forth on Twitter the way you do, right? You and I have a different level of, I've seen Reef and Ray be online and kind of get into it with people, and I'm like, yo, I admire them. That's great. I'm not doing it. I'm not fucking doing it. They be like,
it's important to know what your, as you mentioned earlier, like what triggers are, where you stand, what your orientation.
You got to know who you are.
Know thyself is the most important thing, and what's healthy and what's unhealthy for us as individuals. I do think that's important. I think that's important for all activists. Like what space they're going to be, what they're going to do, right? Like even. And depending on the strategy, right? Like what Dr. King and how they would, talk to folks about before they went to a protest and what they were going to face and what they should do. And, you know, when you think about like Greensboro and the student sit-ins and all these kind of things, like they were thinking about a very particular, and he would say like, hey, if you are a certain type of makeup, this ain't your fight. There are other ways for you to, you know, to jump in. This particular strategy ain't you, you know, like that. We're doing a very specific tactic. And so I think that's really important for, you know, everybody to, you know, just to know. And, you know, those people who are out there, they also need to recognize that people are often like just seething cauldrons of conflicts. And they shouldn't just, you know, assume that people are from, you know, some kind of, you know, that they've never been through things and they're just going to be pushovers and so forth, because you don't know what people's stories are and you don't know what people's triggers are. And so, you know, learn how to, you know, hate in a way that ain't going, you know what I mean, you know, get your chin checked, I think is, you know, really important. But, you know, ultimately, I think this work is it's never going to not have people shooting daggers at you. And when we think about our ancestors, what they went through, you know, Common, what he said, Common said, I kneel where the rebels prayed. Like those rebellious ancestors, and what they had to go through, like, you know, I'm like, you know, some hate, small things to a giant, you know, because like our ancestors, those rebellious ancestors went through so much more.
I love that Negro. I love this Negro so much because we is on such different levels.
Yeah. So here's what I'll add to that, Reed, and fellas. This work, man, it'll take you out, right? And so this work is not for the faint of heart. It's very difficult work, right? So if you're aspiring to be in this type of work, you know, make sure that you are checking your mentals. Checking on your mentals. Make sure you.
That's my man's podcast. Man. Check your mentals, Mal.
Make sure you are definitely doing your yearly checkups and staying in tune with your health, because like you can get angry and like things can happen. Things, you know, and the next thing you know, you're in somebody's hospital room based off of not being able to deal with you know, the level of scrutiny that you can get from trying to do the right thing for people, right? And so always want to be mindful of that. I always want folks to know what they're stepping into, because this is a lot. This ain't no easy, like you may see, you know, folks doing it and you're like, this seems like, you know, I could do this or whatever, but like this shit ain't easy at all.
Well, and you also got to be good. Like, but you also got to be good.
Doing like, that's about themselves too, right? Like,
and you got to be good at what you do.
Yeah,
like that's the other thing.
And you got to like know your role, because I think like when we got to the example we just talked about. I consider myself to be an activist, an advocate, in addition to the other work that I do. I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, I do these other things too. But one of the roles that I took on a long time ago that I thought was fairly critical was we have school leaders who are trying to do good work, who get attacked, who we know can't return fire, right? And sometimes we see schools close, or we see school leaders move on or have to leave or whatever, because their hands were tied behind their back. They couldn't return attacks that were coming on them, and there was no one defending them. There was no one standing up saying, oh, I'll take it on for you. I'll stand in your way. You keep teaching children. You keep doing your school thing, and I'll block and tackle for you or whatnot. That, and mentally for me a long time ago, that became what I saw the pugilist nature of what I do, the role of it. It isn't just to be out here writing and tweeting or whatnot. It's if you are going to try and come for our schools or our school leaders, especially people that I know, and I know they tell me privately what's going on, but they can't themselves jump out there and do anything about it. So the other side knows that they're beating up on somebody that can't do anything about it. And they're really, their goal is to get them fired or get them ousted, to get them out of town. Now, tell me y'all haven't seen that exact same situation, right?
Whole lot.
That's a playbook.
Right? Total playbook, because they can't say anything back. And it's like they're always looking around, like who in the community or who in my network is going to like
what they call cover fire out in the field, right?
And they need people who are good. What Charles just said, like are good at it, like good at like getting out there, because they're not going to sit on Twitter all night long. But Twitter can get you fired. I'll just be real with you. Twitter can get charges.
It sure can.
Brought on you. You know, it could get lies about you into circulation, and that end up in the newspaper. and end up on the news at night, and you're like, where the hell did this come from? Right? Like all of a sudden, you know, and you look around, who can help you? So I would just say that
but
much.
you're talking about it, but I mean, you giving some real game, and I don't know if people really understand it. Like, you need a niche, and that was one of my pieces around. I tell all my friends that's in this type of work, get you a LLC too. Everything you're doing, also have something on the side that you can do. That, like, if you one of them people like a Chris Stewart that can actually be somebody's fodder on Twitter, or y'all believe in the same thing, and they don't want, like, I don't want to deal with that. If I had the bread, I'd just hire him and be like, well, you deal with that then, right? Like, but as a black person, as a brown person, as somebody doing this work that cares about kids, you have to also find your niche and something that can garner you money independently, just in case, especially if you tie to a larger body that has to play this politics game in a different way. Now we're talking about where you have your mattress money. Like, what is that? What else are you good at? So you can still just earn. So what I would like to have is, if one of us if let's say I got in trouble, God forbid, knock on wood, I don't want to put down nobody else, but I'm glad, I want to have friends in position like a Ray, a Chris, or a Reef. Like, oh, okay, Charles, I know Charles got this skill. I can shoot him this contract over here so he can do what he needs to do. We have to have that type of network. You see people on the internet that are truly independent, like, because they make their own money. I won't say his name here. He's a friend, but I don't want to, but this cat does and says whatever he wants. I agree with some of it. A lot of it I don't, but nobody's stopping him. No, but here's the thing. Nobody is stopping him because he built his own stuff up from scratch. He divested from larger institutions where he doesn't have to play that game, and he's doing what he needs to do. I know some sisters that do that thing as well. So I just think that's just, don't let that go over your head, what Chris was saying.
Yeah, no, that's dope game right
now.
there.
I know we're going to run up on time, and so I took some notes, just like some key points that y'all made, and I want to share them. I also want to give y'all like a chance to do your final word. Before that, I don't feel like I gave a concrete example to folks. So I just want to say yesterday I tweeted out something about teachers in Minneapolis. Beth Hawkins, who is a nationally renowned journalist, wrote a piece years ago, and she retweeted it today to bring it up again, that in Minneapolis, the wealthier and the whiter the school, the better paid the teachers. And they did some studies and some analysis. So the blacker your classroom, the lesser paid your teachers. So if you're a child in Minneapolis and you're white, chances are your teachers are better paid than black children. And for me, with all that we talk about with equity, that should just be a simple point to talk about. Like, does it make sense that in 2022 that a black child's teachers would be on the basis of race of the classroom in the school would be lesser paid? Now, we can talk about all the reasons that happens, but we should be able to just talk about it as a thing. The response that I got from a teacher in Jacksonville, Florida, and Sharif jumped in on this Twitter thread, she said, this is in answer to my tweet of what I just told you about. You know that your billionaire funded salary could send 50 of my Latin students to Italy and Greece for 2 weeks, right? That's what private school students do. But solving inequities would put a huckster like you out of work, wouldn't it? You and other vultures don't dare to teach. Well, first of all, I just want to say, I looked up her school, and if she's teaching, her kids don't know it. And I just want to put it that way because I saw the outcomes. So she's been teaching for 38 years, but I'm putting teaching in air quotes. But why I got to be a vulture and a huckster? I got to put the teaching in air quotes because if she's teaching, the kids ain't learning, whatever it is. Because I went and looked up the things, and their own school improvement plan actually is pretty honest about the fact that she needs to spend less time coming at Chris Stewart and more time coming at her practice. But
Chris, you live in a they throw rock, they become victim like society, and that's just the time, right? You can say whatever crazy to me, but when I say something back about the thing that you're supposed to be good at doing, now I'm attacking all teachers. Now I'm attacking. No, I ain't got a problem with education. I do, but I ain't got a problem with all teachers. I got a problem with you not being good. Don't conflate. Don't look around. You said that. That is you. That's your thing. But again, bro, you've been blessed with a level of but you play in them streets, Chris. Like, you like playing in them streets.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna say, I didn't say
you
that.
Get catharsis from that shit.
Her school improvement plan said that. Her school improvement plan. So anyways, I just want to say, I'm telling you, she's supposed to be a left-wing, justice-loving person, and I'm telling you that Black students get lesser paid teachers in Minneapolis, and your response is that I'm a huckster and a vulture, right? Okay, so I only have 3 examples. I'm going to go to the next one. Amy Frogie, who was a former school board member in Nashville, she was tweeting something, and I tweeted at her about the measurable results for Black children in her district. And her response was, shame on you. My last presentation at my board was about integration, but you're nothing more than a paid whore, not interested in engaging. Right?
Not a whore.
You gotta
be a paid
whore. You whore.
And I want to say, like, for the record, I think getting paid.
That's redundant. It's redundant.
Whores do it for free. No, whores are free.
No, it's redundant. A paid whore is redundant. So.
Prostitutes get paid.
But here's the thing:
whores are happy to do it for free.
But that's the person teaching. She don't even know redundancies. You feel me? Like that's what they're teaching, right? Like you don't know redundancies yourself. You don't know that sentence ain't even structured well. But continue, brother. You know, you paid whore.
The last one. So those are 2 on the left. I'll give you a right-wing version, right? The right-wing version is I tweeted about teachers' unions are still imperfect on racial matters, but it pains me to admit they're better on race than their private school choice opponents. Choice folks should worry about glass houses when criticizing teacher unions on race. I'm just pointing out that some of our school choice friends are going a little crazy on race. Robert Pondicio tweets at that. He takes my tweet and says, unions fought to keep schools closed and teaching remote at an incalculable cost to Black and brown kids. This is so-called better on race only to those whose paycheck depends on perpetual inequity. So now I'm a race hustler. I have a paycheck that needs things to stay inequitable so that I can stay in so-called business, right? He's not the only one who has said that, by the way. First of all, why everybody got a problem with the salary? Like you uppity Negro, you got a job. You got a job. Why is the hate so strong on the job part?
Well, look, I'm so glad that you brought up left and right. You know, I was talking to a friend this past week, and she said her husband said, like, you know what, life is a circle. And the more left you go, you end up on the right? Because it's the same mind, right? It's the same mindset. We talk about this a lot. What Malcolm talked about, that bird and 2 wings. We talked about on Freedom Friday, right? Like, you know, it's the same bird, right? And so whether they're on the left or the right, whether they're Democrat or Republican, it's so much similarities. They have more in common with each other about anti-Blackness, about Black children. They don't like
uppity Negroes on either side.
Oh, free Negro.
On either side.
Come on, bro.
They don't love an uppity Negro on either side.
So, you know, all of that, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that, you know, you're able to pull from both sides. But, you know, the fact that there's hate all around, you know, like, rejoice it, embrace it, you know, and ignore as much as you can.
I'm glad y'all back for Freedom Fridays. I can't wait to get an invite to come.
So I don't know if that's gonna happen. No, just kidding, bro. You coming on soon, bro. You coming on. So, anyways, I want to wrap up into our final thoughts because I think this has been a good discussion, as best we could possibly have about the game itself, about haters, and about the preparation for people when they come into advocacy work or any type of work that puts them out in the public to know that it's real, that it gets real. You might get your knees skinned a little bit. You might get bruised up a bit. But you have to make a decision on whether or not that's going to deter you for speaking the truth on behalf of your people. So let's wrap into final thoughts. And I'll start with you, Ankrum, since we started the other direction. What are your final thoughts on the topic of tonight?
Yeah. So I'm going to skip talking about tonight, Mr. Tangent. Sorry. But I want to
don't do it, bro. Don't do it.
I want to recognize the folks that were murdered by the little white kid in Buffalo, New York, right? I feel like we need to name these folks so that people understand that Black Lives Matter to us and they need to matter to everybody. And so give me a little time because it's some folks. Roberta A. Drury, age 32, Marcus D. Morrison of Buffalo, New York, age 52, Andre McNeil of Auburn, New York, age 53, Aaron Salter of Lockport, New York, age 55. Geraldine Talley of Buffalo, New York, age 62. Celestine Cheney of Buffalo, New York, age 65. Hayward Patterson of Buffalo, New York, age 67. Catherine Massey of Buffalo, New York, age 72. Pearl Young of Buffalo, New York, age 77, Ruth Whitfield of Buffalo, New York, age 86. And so for the victims of this senseless crime rooted in white supremacy and white terrorism, my prayers and our prayers go out to those families.
Thanks for saying their names. I'm sure the person that that killed these human beings was shot and killed. I'm sure that happened, right? Because that's what always happens, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Raymond. Go ahead, Charles.
I mean, do you want to have an actual? You can still have a final. I mean, we needed to say that, but you can still have a take on this.
Yeah. Let me get a final thought here.
There you go.
All right. So listen, if you don't have haters, then you're not really doing the work, right? This work comes with haters, and so you need to be prepared for it, and you need to be able to do the things that you need to do both physically and mentally. And to double down on Charles's point, if you come on stage and I'm on stage, you get in the smacketh downeth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I mean, I appreciate that. I'll roll into mine. Yeah, let's just go ahead. I agree with all of that, and very, very sad to hear about that tragedy. So thank you for doing that. We should have had that. We mentioned that in the show. Here, just my final thoughts. It's just the final points of what Chris asked us to prepare. Here are just some tips. Use that hate as fuel to be better at what you do. If there's some validity in some of it, take a look at it, but use it to improve, but take that energy and convert that energy into something positive. A lot of what I've been able to do has been converted from hate. It has been converted from things that I hated growing up, and it is I had to make sure that it was a blessing that God bestowed on me. The other thing is, what's your anchor? You got to know it. You got to know your limits. You got to know what pushes you over the edge and what'll make you irrational. It's really good. So that way your team can protect you, your job can protect you, and the people that know your heart can, make sure that you're in good situations, or they can see things coming and maybe help you out. 3, you got to be okay with being alone. Part of all this hate stuff is when you feel like you got to be friends with everybody. And this is me. I felt like when I did this work, I had to be friendly with all the Black people that were in it and like show up at everything and be there for every piece. And it did not have a good impact on me. And like unless I'm invited, unless I have a specific goal, or a specific task to do, I'm probably not showing up. I'm gonna kick it with my real friends, and that's what's gonna happen. But I'm happy to come. I just need a reason for being there. Every time I got in trouble in my life, I was somewhere where I wasn't really invited and I didn't need to be. And just because this is education work or professional work, those rules still apply. Be around people that know your heart. I think that's really important because we live in a time where people do a lot of showing. They do a lot of flag flying or just kind of virtue signaling or whatnot. You need some people that know your heart because you're not going to say everything right. They got a new term for shit every single day. So if people really don't like you, they'll be able to pull up some tweets, some thoughts or whatever the case is that was okay a week ago, but ain't okay now. So make sure you got a good crop of people so you don't just think you're a a-hole all the time. And then I would just say, and finally, if you're coming back to this work or you coming into this work, there's actual work that needs to happen. You might see people giving talks. You might see stuff like the A Black Hands. Like we were the first ones to kind of come into this space and do this the way that we did it. There was a void, there was a vacuum, and there's a lot of people here now, and we welcome those people. We've helped many of those people get here, but there also is work that happens in the background, a lot of work around our people, where this is just the show of that work. This is not the work. And I think that that's just really important to know. And finally, right, for a lot of people, if you are getting that type of genuine hate and you don't understand it, and it's for some stuff you're doing and they're trying to explain your gains and your wins away, just understand and know you are proof of something that they have probably said publicly or to a lot of people is impossible. And now you're doing it. And now other people looking at them sideways and they feeling that pressure. And people that have hated on me, people that I've had issues with, most things can be solved with a conversation. I've had people that it's been serious beefs with, and we can have a conversation and get it away. But in the absence of that stuff, it just ain't always sweet, man. A lot of people, and I know it's long-winded, but this is important. Sharif alluded to this. I'm going to say it because Sharif is not going to say it like this. It is a lot of people in this work that just recognized that there was a Black person in college. There's a lot of Black people that's in this work that did not maybe not have felt in love with their own community, their own culture young, and now they got some success and they get to be the Black person in that room. And then when an authentic Black person shows up, it exposes things and they don't like that and they got to get you up out that space. Cat Williams said, sometimes it's a Chrysler 300 and it looks a little bit like a Bentley, and then a Bentley rolls up. Sometimes you just a Bentley, man, and they're a Chrysler 300, and that's their issue to deal with. So take it as a compliment, but stay on your square and keep moving forward, because ultimately the goal is helping our people and doing your work. That's my final thought.
Yo, I'm so glad that you mentioned that interruption, because it reminds me of James Baldwin when he talked about those who believe that things can't be done are usually interrupted by others doing it. And what happens when that interruption happens? What happens when someone, you have this cognitive dissonance, or this deep belief that this can't work, or these people are not human beings, and folks say, like, I'm not going to defend my, prove my humanity, but I'm damn sure going to defend it. Like, what does that mean, and what is the haters' reaction to that? Also, Cole, love that you said, consider what people, tell you, even if their intentions were impure, even if their intentions were downright hostile, because I do think that we can be courageous and humble at the same time. And so even if it came from the words of a hater, can you use it to improve yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important for us to to remember and to think about, and and walk in our truth. And at the same time, be a listening ear. And I think all of that is so important. And ultimately, if you know your why, who you're serving, what you're serving, what's the cause, who you're with, who you're working with, and and being in the feedback loop, right? Being in the feedback loop with those that you serve, and having the trust where they're going to give you the truth, the honest truth, having that circle, as you mentioned, to make sure that it happens. And then ultimately just remember Haki Madhubuti, and then again, this is something that we would memorize in elementary school, but that all that is good and accomplished in this world takes work. Everything else is jive. And so you can think about back in the day when in the 70s, when they talk about like this joint is jive, a whole lot of those folks out there are jive. Don't worry about it. Keep focused and, let it roll off your back. You know what I mean? Kill them with blindness. Determine who you ain't even going to see.
Wow. Well, first of all, I appreciate all the work that you all are doing. When we talk about the work, when people say the work looks
different than the job, right? Different than the job.
Different than the job. It's the revolution. I mean, our children are captive. Our children have never stopped being a captive. So I have no friends who are not daily thinking about and working on the liberation and freeing of Black children, because they are captive today, just like they were captive 20 years ago and 50 years ago and 100 years ago. The captivity just looks different today than it has ever looked before. There are actively 8 million Black children walking into schools that are trying to foreclose on their minds and their futures every single day. It's an act of war. A lot of times it's class war, but it's definitely race war on the Black mind, the Black child, and the Black future. And if you don't think that it's just that serious, or if it sounds like dramatic what I'm saying to you, then maybe the work isn't for you. Maybe you're not going to be this activist that is going to stand up, or this advocate who's going to stand up and constantly ask the question, how are the children? What are you doing for them? How are we freeing them? What resources and opportunities and avenues are we putting them on to make the future different than what the past has been? So we have no friends who are not working on that. We have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent interest. And the permanent interest of us right now is the Black intellect, the young Black mind, the intellectual development of the young Black child. That is my activism. I believe we should be rebuilding our Black educational capital. So if you see me doing anything, whether it's tweeting or Zooming or writing or meeting or putting things together, coalition building, conspiring, developing plans, trying to get policies passed, all of that is in the service of a single goal, which is answering the question, how are the children, with policy, answering it with structures, answering it with a demand for change, that we stop foreclosing on the Black mind. Some of what I heard you all say. So first of all, I'll say this one point too. I don't think that the devil is concerned with you until you are truly doing God's work. I've always believed that. So as long as you are not doing anything worth anything, you'll be just fine. You'll be sailing through. As long as you're just consuming mindless things and intoxicating yourself with all of the accoutrement of post-racial capitalist society or whatnot, then you're fine. When you start trying to do something truly liberatory or different is when the devil takes an interest in you, when you start doing God's work. And then you will know, because it'll be like the book of Job. You will be facing plagues of different sorts, right? You will be like, why am I being under attack? I feel like this is spiritual warfare. I'm just trying to run a school. I'm just trying to educate children. I'm just trying to get a program passed. Why am I feeling like Job in this situation? That's because you're doing God's work. The devil has attuned and tuned into your channel. And you should take that not in the negative. You should take that as a good sign, because the devil isn't interested in you until you're doing something worthwhile for your people or worthwhile for the world. Some of what I heard you all say today, I'm going to repeat these back in a few points in case people are wondering in some of the things that you guys gave as points. Let your work speak for you, Charles said. Charles said, let your work speak for itself, and you don't have to defend what you've done, right? So you're not what you say, you are what you do and what you produce. This group has produced more teachers. This group has produced educated children. This group has produced a literacy fund for people to read and decode a complex society. This group has produced a lot of narrative changing content into the world. You are what you do, not what you say. So let your work speak for itself. Be cool with not having friends. Charles said that too, right? Jesus wasn't super popular, right? A lot of people are super popular, right? I don't know what Chris Rock said about it, but he said, I got 5 good friends or something like that. And, that's even questionable or whatnot. If you just want to be liked, this might not be the work for you. Every time you get lumps doesn't mean that you took a loss. Make sure your opponent knows that they were in a fight, even when you're going to lose. So you're going to take some lumps, be okay with it. Discernment, know when to respond and when not to respond. As Sharif said, kill them with kindness and kill them with blindness. Some people you're not even going to see. So be good at determining whether it's an actual threat or the wrong narrative that you are trying to put out. Know who you are accountable to and for. We are here for our people. We are here for the liberation of our people. Anything else is noise, right? So people could call you all kinds of neoliberal, privatizer, whatever word du jour that they have for the week to describe a threat to their social order. They can call you all of that, and you can be all of that in their mind. They're not trying to liberate you or your people or your children. And just remember who you're accountable to. If the hardest thing you have to do is open your mouth and tell the truth about the conditions of your people, you have it better than your ancestors had. So open your mouth, let your ancestors speak. Remember who you're doing the work for and be centered in that. I heard Ray say that earlier. Be centered in that work. And the last one, I don't know which one of the brothers said this, but this one to me feels like the most important one. Be in community with your supporters who give you strength, so that when you deal with the haters, you are emboldened and in strength. Strengthened and fortified and ready for that fight, because you have your people in your ear and with you, and your supporters are bigger than your haters. And I would say Google Cat Williams haters. It's a great clip. I think one of the brothers mentioned that, and I would say do that because he says let haters do their job. Yeah, their job is to hate. Their job is to hate. That's what they're supposed to do. Let them do their job. You need to get in touch with your star player. Your star player is the inner you that you build up every day. You look in the mirror and say, "You looking tall today." That's what Cat Williams said, right? Brother, is you 6'2", right? You need to be your own star player and your biggest hype man, and let haters do their job, right? So that's all I got, brothers. Did I miss anything?
No, I think I like. I'm gonna look up that cat clip because what you.
I don't think you should look it up.
It's gonna be you should. Your house
all right. Yeah, I'll skip it then. I'll just take the condensed version that y'all just shared. Ray, fix your eyebrows. What y'all reminded me of is just from a spiritual sense, like it's that what Shakespeare said, like the world's a stage, and my wife reminds me all the time, and people in her circle, like she reminds all the time that there are people who are actually playing their role in your life, and even if it's hate, it doesn't mean that it's not for you to improve and refine yourself, right? Just even your reaction, how you respond to that, and those high roads that you might want to aspire to take and things like that, it still means that you may be refining your skill, your technique, your language, your actions, all of those things, right? And so if the world is a stage and there are people, if you think about it, some of our, most impactful people actually had the biggest haters. And right, as you mentioned, like when you're doing God's work, that's when, the devil will come to you. Everybody who had a colossal impact, they could not have ascended to that space, that impactful, without the hate. So use that as a fuel. Use it as fuel, But there's ways, I think, just to refine our spirituality as we lead, as we push, as we challenge, as we are activists. And so, look at it from another angle. Like they're just playing a role that they're supposed to play, and remove the emotions from it, and say, like, you know what, I'm going to actually use you to improve the work that I'm doing on behalf of our community, right? So, it's a lot to think about. I appreciate, the topic today.
Mm-hmm. Well, we love all of y'all that came in and watched tonight and added comments into the comment feed. We appreciate y'all. Please share the show with a friend, even after it's done. Get more people up on the 8 Black Hands train. Get them to understand what we do. We have some new stuff that's going to be coming out for you all, so please watch and stay tuned for some things.
Chris, I'm sorry. Can you tell me to go? No, it's good. We wrote a book for y'all. We wrote a book for y'all, and it is available and it's free. Go to abh.org and then just put in your email address, and then there will be a link that sends you there. We will do a much more formal, marketing scheme or strategy, but go to abh.org right now. I'm sorry about that, Chris. I meant to get something out to you earlier on it, brother. I appreciate it. Sorry.
So people go to abh.org, look for more information there on our new PDF that we have for you, a publication, something that we wrote. We'll be writing more there. Also, you could go to Patreon and look up 8 Black Hands and join our Patreon. We'll be having more information for you coming as a Patreon member and a Patreon guest. And we are still working on a national tour as the 8 Black Hands. So as always, we appreciate you being in the game with us to save Black children. Thank you. We will see you next